Hi everybody, I have a tutorial to share with you today, and the inspiration for this project came from the book Math in the Garden. So I'm just flipping through the pages of this book. It's a delightful book, really great illustrations, and comes with tons of projects for you to do math in the garden. This book is designed for elementary age kids, and I really like the balance of gardening and math for this book. Now, this book was designed for ages 5 to about 13, so it covers a lot of different math concepts. And what I also like about this book is that it has a chart that shows how each of the projects meet the state standards, and that's really great if you wanted to add that into your curriculum. So for this project, we are going to be doing a garden journal, which is the first project that is recommended in this book. Now, it recommends using cardstock for the cover of your garden journal, but we decided to watercolor a spring-inspired scene instead. So we did this on watercolor paper, and I have a tutorial on how to do this as well. It also recommends using a rubber band or twine and some sticks or twigs to bind the top of your garden journal. We're using some 70-pound drawing paper for the interior of our garden journal, and this we picked up from a local craft store. The first thing we want to do is hole punch the top portion of your paper, and I've just readjusted my hole punch so that they'll all fit up the top, and I also added some tape as a guide so I would make sure that each paper that I punched was centered. So I'm going to go ahead and center it right now and then punch the holes. The book recommends 2 holes, but I didn't want to use the hand punch to do this, so I am just going to do 3 holes at the top, but actually it turns out in my favor later on, and I'll show you why. So now I've gone and punched all the paper, enough for 3 garden journals. I'm going to go ahead and punch the front cover as well, and this is watercolor paper, so only one piece of paper fit in, but you want to make sure that you position it correctly and all the way to the back of the hole punch so that your holes get punched correctly. Now the next part is optional, but I really think that it makes the garden journal fold better and more beautifully, and that's to use a scoreboard in order to score all your paper so that it folds easily once it's bound. So I'm going to score my paper at about 3/4 of an inch, which will allow the hole punch to be centered at the top. Now I accidentally scored 2 pieces of paper at one time, but in general you want to just score 1 paper at a time. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that to the front cover as well. The watercolor paper is thicker, so I need to press harder, but if you've got thin paper, don't press too hard, otherwise you will rip your paper. So now I've got them all scored. I'm going to go ahead and fold them just so that they fold easily once we bind them together. The last step is to assemble the whole garden journal together. I'm just going to add the front cover to about 8 to 10 sheets of paper, and you can see how those holes line up really well. And then the last step is to take some of this twine to tie that twig to the top. So I'm going to measure approximately twice as long as the width of my paper. And if you had a long rubber band, you could use that instead. It'll be just as easy. This just adds just a little more artistry to the journal. So I'm slipping my twig around the top part of the twine. Then I'm going to take the 2 end pieces and thread them through that first hole and then pull it through. You want to make sure that your twine is strong enough because we are going to have to pull this pretty taut. So once that part is done, we're going to take the rest of the twine and thread it through the center hole. Now this is where it ends up looking pretty because originally you would only be threading it through the very far right hole, and if you were using rubber bands, you would just have the single rubber band going from one end to the other. But now we get to wrap our twine around the center part twice, and it just adds like a nice detail. And then we're going to take both end pieces and loop it back out in the back. And at this point, you just want to make sure that everything is nice and tight. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it, and you just want to make sure that you're not tearing any of your paper at this point. The last part is to pull the twine again through the last hole. You only need to pull 1 piece of twine through. I accidentally pulled both of them, but you only need 1. Then you're going to take that single piece and pull it back out again, and then I'm also going to pull the extra piece that I didn't need to thread through. So then I'm just going to make sure everything is centered and positioned well, and then I'm going to tie it off a couple of times. I don't want this to come undone, so I'm going to tie it once and then wrap the twine underneath the rest of the twine and then tie it off another time, and then I think I tie it one more time around, just for good measure. I don't want this coming apart at this point. And then I can just trim off the extra pieces, and you can see that that's nice and snug there, and it's not going anywhere, and I love the way the front looks. It's so beautiful. And there's a really nice garden journal, super easy to make, and if you skip watercoloring the front, this goes by very quickly. I'm really pleased with the way they turned out. It wasn't too difficult to make. I would say this project takes about 15 minutes or so, as long as you have all the materials set up and ready to go. The tools certainly make it a lot easier, like a 3-hole punch and the scoreboard, but you can certainly do this without those tools as well. We're really pleased with the way this project turned out. The kids especially like it a lot. Don't forget that you can check out the tutorial on how to watercolor those dandelions, and if you want to see the other videos in our Botany Main Lesson Block, you can click on the screen right now, and if you want to check out some of my other tutorials, you can check out the playlist as well. And if you want to see how we're going to be filling up this garden journal on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.